It's Sunday, but there's still a lot happening in Washington and several issues still dominating the conversation. Joining me now to break it all down, legal analyst Kelly Hyman. Kelly, how are you? I know you're in Denver, but we're curious. Outside the Beltway, what's dominating those political headlines?
Hello, how are you? It's nice to see you, and it's nice to be on the show today. And happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Barr's contempt is leading the stories. As some of you are aware of, the Judiciary Committee voted to recommend to the House of Representatives that he should be held in contempt. And so ultimately, the House of Representatives will make a determination whether to hold him in contempt. And so that's one of the main stories that's going on right now.
Yeah, this is a big one. Will the Attorney General be held in contempt? Like you said, the committee voted yes, and now this goes for a full vote. You know, but the question now is, Jerry Nadler said, okay, it's going to be a civil contempt, but could it be criminal? Because some people, including Speaker Pelosi, are hinting that maybe this is inherent contempt and not, we could be talking jail here.
You know, that's a very good point and an interesting, argument. And ultimately, we're going to see, what happens. If the House ultimately determines that he is contempt, then we start with the legal proceedings and whether, in fact, that they can get the full unredacted report with all the underlying evidence. And as you know, the president has stated that there is an executive privilege. However, usually the executive privilege is used for conversations with the president and his advisors, and there is no constitutional right to the executive privilege. So we'll have to ultimately see what happens.
Yeah, we circle back to the Attorney General being held in contempt. The last time that Congress had somebody arrested for contempt was 1934. Speaker Pelosi herself saying that there's a jail, a local jail down in the basement of the Capitol. When you look at 2020, you look at all the Democrats that are effectively trying to make their way to the White House. How does this play outside of the Beltway? Do people look at them and say, hey, listen, we've got real issues. We want money in our pocket. We want real conversation. But instead, we're talking about holding someone in jail for criminal contempt on something that's basically paperwork, if you will?
Well, that's a really good, interesting argument. However, I think the Democratic Party understands that people have personal issues that are directed towards them of their concerns, whether it's putting food on the table and jobs and, helping people with health care. But I think it's also important for people to realize that you need to be accountable for your actions. And so the legal proceeding has to proceed and to hold someone in contempt if ultimately that happens.
So let me ask you, you're outside the Beltway, and again, I'm curious as to how people feel about things outside of D.C., because obviously this is an echo chamber inside the Beltway. This Mueller report is sitting in the dungeon, basically, of the Capitol, waiting to be read by those who can have access to this, those in the committee. 92% of that Mueller report is unredacted. You're an attorney. You know that the other 8%, likely much of that is classified information, grand jury information that you know is secret that would remain redacted if this goes to the courts and the court says that's as much as you'll get, what's already sitting at the Capitol. How does that make the committee look?
Well, I think the committee knows that they have a right to know that not only should they see the full unredacted report, but they should see all the underlying evidence or supporting documentation.
Including things that are secret grand jury classified information?
Well, we don't know that, what it is or not. I haven't seen the Mueller report.
Do you think that 8% of that may be that?
I don't know. I haven't seen the report, but I think that the American people have a right.
You're an attorney. You know that some of that is potentially classified in grand jury information. I mean, this did go through a grand jury process, so you'd have to assume that some of the report is grand jury secret.
I don't know, because we haven't seen the full report, haven't seen the unredacted report, or we've seen the underlying documentation to support that. I think that's really important. I think the American public have a right to know.
So you don't think 92% is enough, though? I'm asking, this is, again, playing devil's advocate. It seems like 92% is a pretty tall threshold.
We don't know what's in the other 8%. And I think it's really important that they should be able to see it, and also all the underlying documentation that supports it. I think it's really important just not to see it in a vacuum.
Is it equally important for the DOJ to investigate how this all came about and to look back at the FISA warrants and see if potentially those were spurred just off of some sort of maybe not legitimate ground?
That's an interesting argument. According to Comey, he says that, that they've done nothing wrong and let the truth come out, and he's been very truthful with it.
Would it be fair to investigate?
I'm sorry?
Would it be fair to investigate?
I think that it'd be interesting, to find out if that's the case. But Comey has said that he's done nothing wrong, and that he welcomes that, and that see what happens.
Should we see Bob Mueller testify?
That's an interesting. I think that the American people have a right to know and to see what he has to say.
All right. Thank you so much, Kelly Hyman. Interesting conversation. Loving your perspective, and we hope to have you back on the Final Five.
Thank you. Nice to see you. Have a great day.
Absolutely. All right. We will be right back here on the Final Five.